Rogelio's here.
Then I would like to call the meeting, the regular meeting of June 23rd, 2020 to order. And if you can, we do have a flag, or you can remain in your seat and we can do the flag salute. So if you all please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Moving on to C2, our closed session. Upon motion by Michelle Robertson, seconded by Andy Schaefer, the board voted 5-0 that Superintendent Rigby's evaluation was discussed and deemed proficient. Moving on to C3, the approval of the minutes of the June 9th meeting. May I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions or comments? Corrections? All those in favor of approving the minutes of the June 9th meeting?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. May I have approval of the agenda and the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I think it's a roll call.
Roll call.
Sorry, Jamie?
Bill.
Aye.
Sally.
Aye.
Andy.
Aye.
Rogelio. Here.
Rogelio?
See on the call? I don't see him.
No. Is he on there,
Okay,
Diana?
now you're on mute, Rogelio. I found you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm aye.
Thank you. Moving on to public interest reports. Diana, would you like to give your superintendent's report?
Thank you, Sally. I'll begin with appreciation. Please join me in recognizing Principal Corneo and Assistant Principal Vasquez and the CHS parent group for organizing the most unique and successful 2020 graduation ceremony. It was fabulous. Many thanks also to the K-8 principals for their virtual and in-person promotion videos and ceremonies. They did a great job. We also appreciate the staff, students, and parents who manage online learning at home this spring semester. It was not an easy task. The next item is the state budget. Governor Newsom and the legislature struck a budget deal on Monday that reportedly preserves K-12 funding in the short term and relies heavily on deferrals to help the state close the $54 billion shortfall. There are several key items to AB 77. The first one regarding the deferrals, that means that our 1.2 million apportionment from the state will be deferred. That causes cash flow problems for our district, and that's why we have to have our trans. A second key item is that AB 77 waived instructional minutes and PE minutes, but not the 180 days for 2021. So it is recommended that we meet the minimum days with a combination of in-person and distance learning. So the state is recommending a hybrid model for opening 2021. Another item is that there is no COLA for the state funding, and there's also no COLA for categoricals. We're hoping to receive additional federal money for the from the coronavirus relief funds, and these state apportionments will be based on several different formulas. So we don't know what the total amount will be for our district yet. We hope to see an increase in special ed funding. And then the last item is there's no certificated summer layoffs. The AB 77 also prohibits layoffs for food, transportation, and custodial services for the school year 2021. There's a lot more details. It was a 340-page assembly bill, and we'll have more information as the summer progresses. The next item is summer school 2020. Carpinteria High School will offer online summer school for any student who needs to replace an F or D grade. Summer school will be held from July 1 to the 31st, and information was sent through Parent Square. Our special ed extended year program will begin June 22nd and run through July 17th with online instruction and teletherapy services. The next item is projected enrollment for 2021. We are projecting that we will see 20 less students than the current enrollment, and with the largest decrease at Aliso School. Also, our transitional kindergarten enrollment at Aliso is only 7 students. So we will combine that with Canalino's 17 students, and the TK classes that will be combined will be offered at Canalino, and the teaching position will then be filled, will fill the vacancy at Summerland. School reopening, August 24th. The district leadership team is working with the California Department of Education as well as Santa Barbara County Public Health. They have required checklists and a process that we have to attest to more than 67 items before we can open school on the 24th. And essentially, all the facets of the school day will need to be altered. There is a 9-page checklist from the county health in the following areas: general measures, promote healthy hygiene practices, intensify cleaning, disinfections and ventilation, implementing distancing inside and outside the classroom, limit sharing, train all staff and educate families, check for signs and symptoms, plan for when a staff member, child, or visitor becomes sick, maintain healthy options, and considerations for partial or total closures. Each principal is soliciting feedback from their staff, students, and parents on these items, as well as the district has invited the union leadership to begin the negotiations on the effects of the reopening plan. Our goal is to present a draft reopening plan to the school board at the July 28th meeting, and everyone will receive copies for their feedback. Meanwhile, we encourage all staff and parents to review the Santa Barbara County Public Health Order number 2020-12. It was effective June 12th, and the guidance for schools is at their county public health website. And we recommend that you submit all your ideas and suggestions to your school principals. And then the last item is that we're pleased that Measure U has published their latest newsletter, and you can view it on www.cartmeasureu.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I think all of us would agree that thanks go out to your team and the teachers and the students for doing pretty well over the last 4 months under pretty interesting conditions. So thank you. All right, I think it's back to you, Diana.
The next item is a resolution number 20-870 of the Governing Board of the Carpinteria Unified School District regarding equity for all. And we worked with the student leadership group, Sophia, Laura, Isa, Jackie, and Joanna. They joined us at the last board meeting to discuss issues revolving racial and social justice, equity and diversity in our school district and in our community. And then we also met with this esteemed student leadership group again on June 16th and discussed ways that we could address racial issues and equity in our schools. We are all committed to improving our district and school culture. These efforts reflect our two of our district's core values: respectful community and cultural improvement. So to begin our conversation tonight, we would like to recommend the board resolution on equity in our schools, which goes much further than our current board policies. We have a hate-motivated behavior policy. We also have a discrimination policy. But this resolution is much more focused on addressing racial and social justice and equity. It is developed and modeled after other school districts' resolutions in response to the nation's current fight for racial equity and against injustice, as well as our city council has also passed a resolution. The resolution reads, whereas CUSD is always committed to justice, equity, and inclusivity for all students, families, staff, and community members served by our district. Whereas per board policy 5145.9, we do not tolerate hate or racism toward any group at any time, and we respond swiftly and thoughtfully to provide counseling, appropriate sensitivity training, and diversity education for any persons exhibiting hate-motivated behavior, and as appropriate, counseling and support to those who are victims of hate-motivated behavior. Whereas CUSD is committed to self-reflection and ongoing dialogues on issues of racial and social justice, institutional racism, equity, and inclusion in school communities. Whereas we must work together to address the structural racism that creates economic, educational, and social disparities. Whereas as a school district, we stand together and continually work to create a positive, inclusive culture where every person is respected and valued, and the environment where rich dialogue is encouraged among students and staff, but the discourse does not harm a person's identity or well-being, and our students can depend on staff to model and maintain a learning environment where they can flourish. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Carpinteria Board of Trustees values human rights, peace, respect, justice, equity, and inclusivity, and recognizes that we are strength and diversity, encourages CUSD staff and students to build understanding of racial and social injustice and to examine current curriculum and instructional practices for anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusivity.
The board is asked to adopt Resolution 2870 of the Governing Board of California Carpinteria Unified School District regarding equity for all. May I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second. Jamie, this is a roll call. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Michelle,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
Andy, also muted. I'll skip him, go to Rogelio,
Aye.
and now Andy.
Sorry, I'm aye.
Thank you. Diana, we're going to have a board discussion on equity for all, and I would like to remind the board that this is merely listening, and we're going to hear what other people have to say. Diana?
Thanks, Sally. So again, I've invited the student leadership group, Sophia, Laura, Isa, Jackie, and Joanna to be part of our board discussion. And so I encourage the students to speak up and ask questions during our conversation. And I would like to start with just some information that we've discussed at leadership team. And then I'd like to ask the student leaders to respond and share their ideas or their reactions to the information that we're sharing to continue our conversations that we started last week and this week. And again, tonight's dialogue is just a beginning of realizing what we have stated as a resolution, how we can put it in practice. So we've been discussing at our leadership team and at staff meetings at the school sites how we can make changes in a systemic manner that will address issues of race as well as increase equity among our students and families. We are all interested and focused on making our schools more just, equitable, and safe. We all agree that providing equitable learning opportunities for all students, regardless of race, economic status, and social inequalities. And we believe that our teachers will continue to build their capacities to successfully educate students from diverse ethnic, racial, and socioeconomic backgrounds. This past year, our high school teachers participated in a book study teaching students of poverty. In thinking about our next steps, we think that we really need to begin with professional development, both for the leadership team as well as for our staff this summer. And so our leadership team is engaged in a book study. The book is called Opening Doors, and it's Cultural Proficiency by Dr. Trudy Arriaga, who is a former Ventura Unified Superintendent, a Cal Lutheran professor, and a consultant. And she is going to work with our leadership team throughout the summer. And then we're hoping, or actually we've scheduled her to meet with the entire staff at the opening day, August 19th, to help us work through what Ventura Unified was successful with, is using her template, understanding all the aspects of cultural proficiency and using her template to do a self-assessment and identifying specific actions that take place within a classroom, within a school site, and district-wide. In addition, we've encouraged staff to engage in their own professional development and courses during our 9-week summer break. And these courses would be related to teaching through an equity lens, addressing issues of anti-bias, multicultural, and social justice. One of our resources, Teaching Tolerance, has published a roadmap for anti-bias education and social justice standards that really will assist us in thinking about how we can assess what we currently have in place and maybe make some recommendations for how we can make improvements in curriculum and instruction as well as school-wide practices. This fall, our site principals will work with their leadership teams, curriculum committees, and department chairs to examine current course offerings, our curriculum, as well as our instructional practices. And I think what we will engage in is look at what we currently have in place and ways that we can expand to increase and include anti-bias education. For example, we have a social skills program, Second Steps, at the elementary level. So what we are asking, is it a place where we can expand to include some of the anchor standards that are in the Teaching Tolerance framework, those standards around identity, diversity, justice, and action. We also have a DLI program at Catalino that's been expanded to grade 3, and a question might be, can we expand that to ELISO so we have more opportunities for including bilingual families and a focus on 2 languages of instruction. At the middle school, we have Advisory, AVID, and AHA, as well as AHA Peace Builders. Now, AHA addresses prejudice and discrimination, but can we expand those opportunities to increase or integrate more racial and social justice things? And could we consider increasing more AVID classes and lessons and advisory at the middle school level? As well as all the social studies and literature classes, ELA courses, both at the middle school and high school, looking at ways in which we can include themes of racial and social justice, as well as considering more electives in maybe ethnic studies is one recommendation that has been made from the student leadership group, as well as Chicano literature. Expand AVID and the enrollment, expand enrollment, dual enrollment, and as well as the enrollment for AP history classes. We have replaced Rincon with the Student Success Center. So one of our goals will be ensuring that all students are academically successful. Those that were typically enrolled in Rincon, we want to ensure that they continue to receive the services and support that they will need. And then in terms of restorative justice practices, we've invested heavily as a district in a 3-tiered approach to mental health. And so we're pleased that we don't expel students. We provide counseling and support, and we've replaced suspensions at the middle school with, instead of students not being suspended, is that parents attend the schools with students. So we're looking at ways in which we can provide counseling and education to those students who are struggling with some of the school rules and school behavior. Now, at the last board meeting, the student leaders made specific recommendations. One was to increase or consider starting a celebrating adversity, diversity and education clubs at all campuses. And I think that's something that we will we can definitely consider for all the school sites. A zero tolerance of racism. I do believe our board policies and our resolution reflect that. And we can always improve our restorative justice practices. We have the basis that those practices include education and counseling, but we definitely can improve that. And the student leader group referred to Assembly Bill AB 33, which is ethnic study courses, and that's something that we certainly will consider at the secondary level. And then another request was recommending mandatory cultural training, and so we are pleased that we're able to work with Dr. Trudy Arriaga with cultural proficiency. So those were just the beginning areas of conversation with our leadership team and school principals. So we would really be interested in the reaction of our student leaders and further comments from the discussion of last week. So maybe I can ask the student leaders to chime in.
Yeah, thanks. So Issa couldn't make it today because she has some personal issues but her and I worked together and we came up with some ideas that we wanted to address. So like Dr. Rigby mentioned earlier, at the past meeting, we spoke about many topics, including hiring for a social science position at the high school level, someone who is qualified to teach anti-racist curriculum, addressing a direct, concrete, no tolerance for racism and discrimination policy within our district, and our biggest movement, implementing ethnic studies and anti-racist curriculum within our district. I wanted to make it clear that as a student, I am not personally blaming our district for being racist. This is a long-standing problem. I have had many wonderful opportunities within our district that I am extremely grateful for. Our school systems in general lack cultural sensitive curriculum. It is not specific to just Carpinteria. However, it is also important to understand that students who learn about different cultures, experiences, backgrounds, challenges, etc., will boost the morale of the school, and students will have respect and knowledge about various perspectives and topics. Also, it is important that ethnic studies, cultural sensitivity, and social justice curriculum is not just specific to the social sciences. It is prevalent in our science classes where topics such as environmental racism can be highlighted, or in our math classes where mass incarceration graphs can be interpreted, and especially in English where efforts can be made to include diverse authors and characters so that students may be able to learn through literature and writing. It is important that members of all departments across all ages work together to incorporate relevant information that will educate students so they can provide a comprehensive learning experience. As a student of color in this community, I've experienced firsthand the cultural differences within our school systems. I am optimistic that by working together, we will be able to uplift as many other students as possible, because we will be able to make our educational community a better place for all, whether it be college prep, honors, white, brown, Asian, etc., whether it be teachers or admin. We want to improve our community and focus on social justice and cultural sensitivity that will help educate all. We have the support of many community members here today, students, teachers, staff, parents, who understand the issue at hand. We ask that you as leaders of our schools support us as well. We ask you, Superintendent Rigby, to be transparent with your actions. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak today, and we hope you will continue with our efforts in mind.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Do you have other students, your other student leaders would like to respond as well, or?
Yeah,
yeah, I also wanted to respond. So, like Laura and Issa, I and many other students, alumni, parents, and educators are well aware of the accomplishments that our schools have achieved in the past few years, particularly the implementation of the dual language immersion program, which my mom is a part of, at the elementary level, and the hiring of more faculty and staff members of color. However, as community members, we should always want more for the education of future generations. I, Lauda, and Isa decided to get involved with Diversify Our Narrative, a student-led initiative dedicated to advocating for anti-racist and diverse curriculum in California public schools. While it might be easy to turn a blind eye to the injustices that many members of our community have faced every single day, we call upon the school board members and CUSD leadership to be brave, anti-racist advocates, and to stand up for racial and social justice. The mission statement of Carpinteria Unified School District states, "We are committed to providing a quality educational program in a caring, positive environment which promotes self-esteem and mutual respect." However, this caring, positive environment cannot be achieved by staying complicit in situations of injustice. To truly advocate for all students, CUSD must implement an anti-racist and diverse curriculum in existing classes, implement an ethnic studies graduation requirement at Carpinteria High School, remove the racist imagery that continues to exist in our schools, educate staff and faculty on how to be anti-racist advocates, and appoint a voluntary representative task force made up of teachers, parents, administration, and students dedicated to social justice and creating systemic change. We recently shared a petition with the members of the community that upholds these demands and has over 100 signatures from current students, former students, parents, and educators in the community. Achieving this in such a short amount of time demonstrates the importance of teaching anti-racism and ethnic studies is to our members of the Carpinteria community. Personally, I didn't get to learn about my own culture in school until I went to college, but this doesn't have to be the case. Many current students, alumni, and teachers from diverse backgrounds have shared the same concern. AB 331 is a bill that currently is waiting to be passed by the Senate and would make ethnic studies a graduation requirement for all California public high schools and charter schools. I encourage CUSD to be at the forefront of this initiative by implementing ethnic studies as a graduation requirement at Carp High. As administrators of a school district, you're in a special position of influence. The faculty, admin, and staff must not tolerate racism, and there must be a voluntary task force to hold individuals accountable for their own racial biases and ensure social justice initiatives are being taken. We, as students and alumni, look forward to an explicit timeline and commitment from CUSD leadership regarding your initiatives to ensure racial and social justice. I'm a proud CHS graduate, and I hope to see that the Carpinteria Unified School District takes steps to achieve systemic change. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you, Sophia.
Sally, this would be the time now for the board to engage in some dialogue.
I have comments from the board. Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to first off say thank you to everybody who sent us letters via email. I'm proud that Carpinteria takes this seriously and is engaged in the process. And I was excited about tonight's agenda item because, as you know, as board members, we needed to wait for it to be agendized before we could make statements or have discussion around it. I really like Superintendent Rigby did forward the suggestions made by the student leaders, and I thought those were really well thought out and very appropriate and something that we could seriously consider. I had a question for Principal Cornejo regarding the ethnic studies class, and if we were, since you you're so aware of the master's schedule, if we were to make ethnic studies a requirement, would that then reduce the number of electives that students would take, or how would that kind of balance out just procedurally?
Good afternoon. The first thing the board would need to identify is graduation requirement in what grade level. Would it be a semester-long course or year-long course? Identify the curriculum that would be used. So we would have to evaluate various types of the curriculum. And then identify the teacher that would teach the course and any additional training that would be required. Also to identify how the other departments would support the course, and also how we would promote the course for students to be able to take the class in whenever we choose, whatever grade we choose to do so. So those are the first things that we need to identify as we bring new courses into our master schedule.
And just one more question as a follow-up. Logistically, what is the timeline of a process like that?
Right now, we are building the master schedule for next year. We're very nimble in the fact that we can do so. The unfortunate thing is the students have not been given the opportunity to look at the curriculum, look at the course description, what would it count for in the A through G, and how it would fit in their schedule. So those are the things that we need to identify as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
The good news, though, is that Ventura Unified, Long Beach, there are several districts that have already have the ethnic studies course required as graduation requirements. And Mr. Corneo has already reached out to both of the principals of those high schools to take a look at those courses as a model. So I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So other districts have it in place, and he's already researched that. So that's something that is moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Rogelio, do you have comments?
Yes, actually, yes. It was due to huge demonstrations that we are having this meeting tonight. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it. And I wonder why not. Because the question that I have is that we were supposed to talk about this topic, I mean, years ago, not tonight. Because basically, Carpinteria has its own history of, I would call it segregation back in at Lisa School back in the 60s. And for some, I had a family attend there, and that's where action should have taken. But we are on the right step on initiated all of these, I would call it educational reforms. And this conversation that we're having right now, it proves that it not only happens in big cities like Los Angeles, Washington, Houston. No, it also happened in a small community, and it might be happening in our schools, and that's something that we are addressing tonight on how to improve our education. I mentioned last time, that we need like a Mexican American. I would call it introduction to Mexican American studies, introduction to Afro American studies. But we need a teacher, a professor from, let's say, UCSB or any other institution, because that's the specialty on other cultures that we do not actually we do not have other high school. We have specialists on social studies, but not on Chicano or Afro-American studies, and that's something that I'm glad that other school districts have already taken action, and I think, and I hope that we also take action very soon, because basically what we need is action right away, not something that could wait years down the road. And the title of this presentation is called Equity for All, and that's why that's what we're talking about, equity for each student. And I just hope that this is a reality in the near future, probably a semester away, a year away, but we need it right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Only thing I'd like to add is, it's good to see so many students that are motivated and speak. And we can commit to anything. We need to see what the curriculum looks like, and like Michelle spelled out, what that means for the course offerings for everyone else. But one thing that I think the great equalizer that we're not talking about is reading at grade level and reading achievement. And I think that really can't be ignored. We can offer lots of other classes, but if we only have 50% of our students at reading at grade level, this course offering doesn't really help them. So we can't lose sight of the fact that we have only 50% or less than 50% of our students reading at grade level.
Thank you. Jamie? Is Jamie there?
She may have stepped away for a minute.
Nope.
I can just fill in while she's waiting. One of the things I've been hearing consistently from the speakers over the last couple of board meetings, and then also in the letters, is the experiences that they have had during their time at Carpinteria Unified. And I don't know how successful we've been or not on making our schools a safe place. I'm wondering if the correlation with our Healthy Kids survey of certain grade levels not feeling as safe at school have to do with this equity and racism that occurs. And so I'd like to deeper dive into that data to see if we could pull out maybe some more specifics around that. But we really do, I know sometimes it seems like the board is kind of sitting up here and we don't always know what's going on, but we can only react if we hear. So if you're seeing something or hearing something, it's important to say something so that we can address it immediately. And I know that we always encourage you to go to your teachers and to your administrators, and we really do care. I want to state that I am not a person of color, and so I cannot empathize with your narrative, but I do want to be a supporter and commit to the systemic changes that need to happen. So I hope that you will have optimism and that our board is here to support you.
Jamie, are you back? there are at least 10 speakers who have comments about this issue. And I would just like to remind the speakers that you only have 3 minutes. Monica will let you know when the 3 minutes is up. And I would also request that we be polite in our comments and not be derogatory toward anyone. So Monica, I'm going to have you start calling on the people to speak.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm gonna start calling the people in the order the emails were received, okay? So I would like to invite Mary Beth Carty, please, first.
Good evening. Thank you, Monica. I'm Mary Beth Carty, parent of 2 Carpinteria Unified graduates and a Santa Barbara County Education School Board member representing Carpinteria. I'm speaking tonight in support of the Carpinteria effort to diversify our narrative, and congratulations on the resolution and the discussion that's led up to this point. It's a great beginning, and obviously there is more work to do. I commend our former and current students for their voice and agency in bringing this matter before the school board, as well as organizing a peaceful and well-attended demonstration where I had the pleasure of marching with Superintendent Rigby and Jamie Pursoon, principal of Catalino, among other supportive faculty who share your commitment to changing the educational experience of those who follow you, so that it truly reflects our history and engages students in the critical thinking skills so desperately needed for the challenges we face as a community and as a nation. And yes, together we're watching history in the making as a moment becomes a movement to finally face the reality and acknowledge the full impact of structural racism. And this requires, of course, a culture shift in any institution. Students, though, are doing the work. They're doing the work of learning. They're actively listening. They're leaning in. And they are looking to adults, to leaders for guidance and a process that will lead to a much needed course correction in our curriculum, one that accurately reflects a diversity of perspectives delivered by a diverse teaching staff. I believe we can do this. I ask that we honor the process and seek to engage that amplified and informed voice of youth to work together to build something great. We're witnessing leaders being born, and I know in Carpinteria, we can walk this journey together. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing what occurs from here.
Thank you very much, Mary Beth. Monica?
Yes, thank you. I would like to invite now Krista Munich. Is she there?
Krista, you have to unmute.
Yes, I wasn't speaking though. I'm just here to support. Thanks, Monica.
Okay. Then Mr. Eric Lewis. He's not here either. Okay, then we go to Mr. Craig Cook.
All right. Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to be reading my comments to stay within the time constraints. Good evening, CUSD board members. First, I'm a parent of a soon-to-be 7th grader and twins who will be starting kindergarten this fall. I'm also a professor in American Ethnic Studies at Santa Barbara City College, where I teach classes in ethnic studies, Native American history, immigration history, Black studies, and Asian American studies. As such, I understand and witness every semester the great value that these courses provide through the elevation of diverse voices, experiences, and histories in the texts and other mediums we use in our curriculum to how it benefits students of any background. Moreover, I'm part of the newly formed Diversify Our Narrative. We are, as you've heard, current students, parents, former CUSD students, CUSD teachers, educators, and more who want to see support of ethnic studies and have 7 proposals about book selections for classes that can be improved for a more diverse view of the world. Schools like CUSD have such an instrumental tool in this long journey towards dismantling racism in this country. To be silent on these issues is to dismiss the potential of this powerful institution to actively combat racism. It is time that we enact permanent structural change in our school system to contribute to this cause. Let us diversify our narrative and utilize our school system to combat oppression for this country and work towards a more equal, just world for all. Ethnic studies allow students to connect with other cultures, with one another and with us. They also challenge students to be capable global citizens guided by knowledge and ethical principles who will shape our future. In these courses, our students study the distinctive cultural, social, and historical experiences of the various racial and ethnic groups of the world. This provides our students with a better understanding of the groups that are being historically marginalized. By studying the cultural, historical, and political experiences of these groups, we could truly learn about the complexities of race and ethnicity. And furthermore, since history in general and US history in particular is created by various individuals and groups operating from various cultural frameworks, beliefs, and practices, it is therefore crucial that it be presented within a multicultural framework. This is where ethnic studies can have a monumental impact on our young students. It also pushes us closer to achieving the goals of these groups who fought for these types of programs in the 1960s in California and across the country. As a result, today we have many school districts and colleges that are seeing a growth in support of ethnic studies that share with these classes that share the experiences and perspectives of these traditionally marginalized groups in the academic curriculum. I recognize that the district has a strong commitment to student success and commitment and educational endeavors, but we do believe that it could better accomplish these goals by adopting many of the practices that we have laid out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cook. Monica?
Yes, next we have Rebecca Norton.
Thank you very much, members of the school board and Superintendent Rigby. I always get excited to participate in this aspect of our democracy, and I appreciate your dedication to our community. I am here as a community member, a parent of 2 former students, and a current staff member in our district. And I'm here in support of the courageous student leaders who are asking for anti-racist initiatives, such as ethnic studies course and graduation requirement at CHS. Their request is indeed very noble and very reasonable. One, and I respectfully request that you make every effort to honor it with all due diligence and speed. Our neighbors to the north, Santa Barbara Unified, demonstrated their advocacy and support of their students by acting on their demands in a timely manner. I'm a school psychologist in your district for the last 2 years. I'm placed at CMS. I've been supervising the interns at Carpinteria High School for the last 2 years. I'm ethically bound to engage in this work through my role and responsibility to our schools, families, the community, the profession, and society. My professional organization has ethics statements and statements regarding just social justice that I emailed to you all earlier today. There are, of course, additional scientific and research-based reasons why implementing an ethnic studies course and graduation requirements at Carp High is an excellent idea and one that can't be ignored at this time. For instance, the National Education Association, or NEA, states that ethnic studies promotes respect and understanding among races, supports student success, and teaches critical thinking skills. Research finds that the overwhelming dominance of Euro-American perspectives in the current curriculum and textbook leads many students to disengage from academic learning by the end of high school. Ethnic studies courses also help to narrow the achievement gap. There is research on this, which I'm certain is a goal that we all share. Thus, this is especially relevant in today's world and in light of current events. I shared the PDF with you all from the NEA regarding this. That was just a summary of what's in that. However, when we're looking at this kind of change, appealing to the mind and the intellect doesn't always motivate us to change. What motivates us to change is appealing to the heart. And in that regard, I'd like to tell a personal story of something that happened here about 12 years ago that affected me profoundly and my family, and has a very direct bearing on these students' requests. Most of you were living here and will recall the situation. Some of you may not have been, yet you may not have heard the whole story from all participants and perspectives. It is sincerely not my intention to shame, merely to speak my truth from my heart. I deeply love and am devoted to my community. My neighbor over our back fence, family that I love dearly, a 15-year-old Native American Carp High School student came forward during the CUSD-sponsored Be the Change Week that included a Challenge Day event in January of 2008, 12 years ago. He petitioned to retain the warrior's name, but have the stereotypical and misappropriated Native American mascot imagery removed at that time. Many students and staff members gave him their verbal and written support at that time. Then on April 22nd, 2008, the board did vote 3-2 to ban the imagery and retain the name. They did the right thing. That should have been the end of it. However, this caused a huge backlash. And when 2 school board members were installed in the fall, the decision was somehow undone, possibly illegitimately, and a Native American Imagery Committee was formed. Following their discussions, on March 17, 2009, based on the recommendations of the committee, the board re-voted to eliminate just 2 of the most blatantly offensive images. Most community members still consider that the issue has been settled to this day. It has not. The issue was flagrantly mishandled by the board and administration at that time, did not fully address his original request, and did not satisfactorily resolve the issue. The district logo has since been changed by leadership and administration, thank you. Yet CHS continues to use and display images that are stereotypes of Native Americans. Stereotypes are shown scientifically to cause harm. To both the holders of the stereotypes, we all have them, and the targets of the stereotypes, we all receive them. Therefore, they are racist. Misappropriated sacred symbols, such as the feathers, should also be removed. Many of us in the community see these images as a painful reminder of institutionalized racism. Other communities have been taking down such images. You've seen it in the news. This is long overdue. It's not too late for you at CUSD to do the right thing, even if it's hard. We must be brave. You must do this as well. What happened behind the scenes of this ugly chapter in our local history was horrifying, heartbreaking, and absolutely unacceptable in any context. While the side representing removal consistently protested peacefully and respectfully, there were numerous verbal attacks on the student, his immediate and extended family members, the allies that stood up for him, and their family members by community members that were espousing retention of the imagery. 2 separate death threats were made against the student, who was a minor at the time. Glass was thrown in the driveway of one board member, and she was told to leave town on several occasions. Another board member's son was bullied so severely that he was forced to change schools.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's been 6 minutes with the time ceded to you by Krista.
Okay, would somebody else cede me their time, please?
Thank you very much, Becky. We appreciate your comments. Monica?
Yes, next we have Kaylee Houston.
Good evening, CUSD board members and fellow students, educators, parents, and community members. My name is Kaylee Houston, and I will be a senior this coming year at Carpinteria High School. For the majority of my life, I have attended CUSD schools, though I feel I've not learned nearly enough. As a white female within these schools, I feel I have learned most about Black and Indigenous culture and history in the past few months, educating myself, than I have my entire life in CUSD schools, where the majority of our history lessons are out of the textbook and Eurocentric. I, along with a number of others, am in full support and am asking for the board's support and commitment to ethnic studies and anti-racist curriculum and courses, along with diversity within CUSD for all student and future students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaylee.
Next we have, next we have Kenya from Girls Inc. Kenya?
Hi, everyone. Yes. Hi, good evening. My name is Kenya Rodriguez, and I am here representing Girls Inc. of Carpinteria. I am our outreach programs manager. So Girls Inc. of Carpinteria serves over 1,000 youth in the city of Carpinteria and in Ventura County. We offer out-of-school enrichment programs for girls and also work directly with CUSD schools to provide Girls Inc. programs around the subjects of literacy, healthy sexuality, relationships, and childhood abuse prevention. We have the honor of working closely with many CUSD students, some of whom are leading the Diversifier Narrative local chapter. and are asking for a broadening of texts and offerings in their curriculum in order to expose students to lived experiences of those with marginalized identities. We want to thank those young people who have led this change so far. Girls Inc. as an organization is committed to advancing the rights and opportunities of girls and young women with a particular focus on the needs of girls from low-income communities and girls who face multiple intersectional challenges. At Girls Inc., we have a girl-centered approach to advocacy. We center our advocacy on the lived experiences of girls who is best to tell us what girls are facing than girls themselves. And this is what we are seeing today. So our mission to inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold applies to all young people. Our mission directly aligns with the demands of the students, alumni, teachers, parents, and community members, demanding change and asking that CUSD diversify the narrative with anti-racist texts in the classroom. The work we do at Girls Inc. of Carpinteria informs us that when girls and youth are able to see themselves and others positively reflected in literature, art, and media, they grow up to have positive mental health, are confident, have high self-esteem, and positive body image. Exposing youth to an array of diverse authors and books ensures that youth grow up to be strong. Our programs ask that youth believe in their inherent strengths and plan a future for themselves around their passions and interests. Ensuring that students have access to spaces where they can learn, grow, and engage with anti-racist texts in an educational setting before college allows our youth to navigate the world they live in. And as a result, we will have young people in this community who are thoughtful, accepting, and smart. The insights and tools of an expanded curriculum will help them be bold. This will help to create the strong leaders and civically engaged citizens that our community needs. Girls Inc. of Carpinteria stands behind the demands of the youth so that the youth of Carpinteria see themselves as and become strong, smart, and bold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenya, and for everything Girls Inc. does. Monica?
Yes, next we have Ana Delgado. Ana Delgado?
Hi, sorry. I just have to like get my paper out. Yeah, so hello, my name is Ana Delgado. I'm a CHS graduate of class 2017. I'm speaking here to you all today in hopes of amplifying the need and encouraging the implementation of an ethnic studies in our curriculum. Through elementary, middle school, and high school, I only have one vague memory learning about Chicano history, and that was in the 2nd grade. But I have many, many memories learning about Christopher Columbus, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and many, many other white men in history. When I got into college, I finally realized why I was so disconnected from these history and English lessons. It's because it wasn't reflective of who I was or my culture. And as for Black history, my only knowledge up until 3 years ago was slave history, and that was also very Eurocentrized. And after taking Black studies courses in college, it's evident that there is major aspects in Black history that never get told. And it's a shame because there is so much more than just slavery. In order to have these ethnic classes, it's inevitable to discuss race. And it doesn't always have to be, a grand gesture or this really intense thing. You can ask students, where they live, where do they go out to eat, who do they hang out with? Ask if the peers in their classes reflect the student body, and challenge them to think why they have answered the way they've answered. Ask how their realizations can connect to other classes they are taking. It's important to understand who you are in comparison to the room, the history of how you got into the classroom. And it's vital that teachers and administration create an environment where students can question and challenge the history they're being taught. If students get angry, allow it, hell, maybe even encourage it. If students begin to feel uncomfortable, have them reflect on why that might be. If we want to change the way this world is structured, we have to start with our curriculum. When I graduated high school, I wanted to enter the world as a leader. And to do this, I have since learned that I needed to be comfortable to not only discuss race, but to more importantly, not be intimidated while discussing it. What I needed in high school was the tools and the practice to do this. And by diversifying our narrative We allow many, many students to reclaim their narrative and be confident in who they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna. Monica?
Yes, next we have Doriana Lancet.
Hello. Okay. My name is Dariana Lancet. As someone who has spent my entire life in Carpinteria, grown up in the Carpinteria School District, and was part of CarPI's graduating class of 2017, I'm speaking today in complete support of Diversify Our Narrative Carpinteria's demands. A few specific things that are on my mind in relation to education in Carpinteria High School. Not once in a formal academic setting in Carpinteria High School did I learn about the history and legacy of the Chumash people who lived, protected, and preserved these lands that we are on right now. Meanwhile, we call ourselves the warriors against the desires and protests of former Carpinteria High School Chumash students and Chumash community members. I know Carpinteria High School, like all educational institutions of integrity, is invested in promoting the pursuit of truth. The Warrior Head Monument is not only untruthful in its degrading simplicity and one-dimensionality, it causes harm by perpetuating shameful practices that are long ingrained in our country's history. The practice of framing human beings as one-dimensional caricatures or property, to be used instead of listened to, respected, honored, and learned from. It was not until I went to college, like a few other people have mentioned, that I was consistently assigned literature, art pieces, and theories by American scholars, artists, and researchers of color. I do not fault Carpinteria High School for what is past. I learned in college that this country was built on and profits off of systems of racial oppression. Many of us are born into the system. All of us are socialized by it. And in terms of education, if we do not take deliberate action to diverge from the whitewashed curriculums and inherent biases we are all prone to having by virtue of being born in this country and this screwed up system, the only outcome that we continue to perpetuate and the only outcome is that we continue to perpetuate and glorify white, mostly heterosexual male narratives about our history and about our current moment if we don't take deliberate anti-racist action like the ones that Diversify Our Narrative Carpinteria has suggested. A quick couple bullet points I wish I could have learned in Carp High that feel specific and vitally relevant to Carp's past and present moment that I hope will be there for future generations. Number one, Carpinteria's full history, focusing on the Chumash who have been here for the last 13,000 years and a non-glorified, honest exploration of the work and harm that missions actually did, starting in the elementary school and growing in depth throughout Carpinteria High School trajectory. Number two, a history of immigration to California, even Southern California specifically in the younger grades. Number three, Carpinteria as a rural town, delving into the roar of a rural community, delving into the role of agriculture in Carpinteria, its complex relationship with immigration, and the contributions of immigrants in California in general.
It's 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dariana. Monica?
On this specific item, we don't have any more speakers that sign up before 3 p.m. We do have more speakers on item E4 and E5 though.
Okay, so when we get to the budget, we can do that.
Yeah.
Is
Thank
it
you all very
possible for people to cede their time?
participating.
Is it possible for people to reseed time to people who need it versus those who didn't?
Jay, we have a very long agenda following. I know this is a very important topic, and I think we've heard some really great comments, but we allocated a certain amount of time, and this is just the beginning of this discussion. We will probably have other discussions to follow.
Probably. I sure hope we do.
I'll guarantee you we
Probably.
will. So thank you very much. And I would like to move on to E4, the approval of the 2021 adopted budget. Is there a motion to approve the budget?
Move to approve.
Second. Michelle, and are there questions or comments? I believe Monica said, you said there was a speaker?
But actually, excuse me, Sally.
Sorry, yes.
At this point, Maureen is going to do a presentation for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen. Diana, you want to enable me to share my screen? Okay, so I'm gonna move to slide 11. I'm gonna skip a lot of the standard parts of the slide that we've gone over several times, and I'm gonna skip to slide 11, which is a new slide. And this is something that we put together that we think is of good context right now, just for information. So it's a 5-year history of enrollment and teacher FTE. So this is grouped by all elementary schools, the middle school, and all high schools, and where the enrollment has gone and how the classroom teacher FTE looks. The high school is a little bit different because we have RINCON involved in there, and RINCON's enrollment has gone up and down, progressively down over the last 5 years. But most of that is the small changes that happen as you need a section here and an extra section there that you may not need year over year. The next slide is a 5-year history of the athletic program. And this is only Carp High with the exception of 2021. 2021 does include Rincon and Foothill since it's all one campus now. And I've divided it into 2 different general pockets of budget. The general operations, which is your athletic stipends, your costs of equipment, and the cost of actual supplies, etc. The majority of this, though, is coaching stipends, and then the athletic transportation costs. And this includes both charter school and in-district buses. So you'll see it fluctuates by year over year depending on the need of charter buses. And the charter buses are needed when trips impede over our school home to school routes. And then you'll notice in 1920, we had school closures effective March 17th, so the spring sports did not occur. You'll see it drop in 1920. In the 2021 budget, the operations portion of athletics is fully restored. It's been made whole. There are no reductions. However, we have removed the cost of transportation from the budget, knowing that the fall will probably not have charter or bus costs and will not be able to support that probably the rest of the year. Again, that's what's in the 2021 budget at this time. I'm gonna skip over the next 2 slides because we've gone over them repeatedly and go on to slide 16, which has been updated with the adopted budget, and I'll get into that as we go into the detail. This is the unrestricted general fund, and then on slide 17, it's the total general fund. Again, this has been updated on new information that you'll get presented in the detail in the next coming slides. This is the pie chart of the 2021 budget. 87% of our budget in the total general fund comes from state aid and property taxes. That is all unrestricted money, with the exception of a tiny fraction that goes to special education. We have 3% in federal revenues, and federal revenues include Title I, Title II, Title III, and special education, and then 6% of state revenues, which includes both restricted and unrestricted, and that's our lottery money, that is our after school program, and there's not a whole lot of other programs in the state revenue bucket, and then local revenue, which is all of our donations and our general fund rental income. When we get into our expenditures, we have that broken down into 5 different pots for this chart. We have salary and benefits, which make up 85% of our budget. We have books and supplies, which are 3%, Services and operating expenses are 9%, and that is also where our utilities live, our internet agreements, our phone bills, all of the water, everything is packed into that. We have some restricted tuition for special education for non-public schools, as well as our bus leases that make up 2%. And then we transfer out of the general fund about 1% of our budget, and that goes to the cafeteria fund and deferred maintenance fund. And this is one of my favorite charts, and this breaks down how our money is spent by function. So when you add up the first the three largest pieces of the pie, or the blue, the orange, and the gray, those are all services directly affecting students. So you can see the majority of our budget, and if you add athletics to that, those and after school program, those are direct services to our students. 10% is general administration, and that includes human resources, the business office, payroll, and all of the property and liability and all the things that run the district. And then plant services are maintenance and operations, our custodians, and in-plant services are utilities. And then the other outgo is not only the transfers out of the other funds, but it is our lease payments for like copiers, etc. And then the next slide on 21, you kind of have the definitions of what's in these different colors. Again, the 5-year special ed history has been updated for the 2021 budget. And then we get into our actual budget assumptions for 2021. So this has not changed. We are still projecting a 3% increase in our property taxes. That's our secured property taxes, with an increase of $698,399. We are still, we still have built in a 10% reduction to our minimum state aid. While we do have an agreement with the legislature and the governor on the state budget, nothing has been signed. And in all of the literature that I have to date, the anticipated reduction for community funded districts, which was what we are, a basic aid district, is silent. So we are not sure if this is going to materialize or not. We have several amounts of one-time money in the 1920 budget that we are not going to have next year. We have $12,400 in MAW funding, Medicare administration. We have $287,211 of special ed preschool funding. That's one time that did not end up back in the governor's budget. We received a one-time Thomas wildfire refund of $28,168, and that was basically a property tax refund, but it was brought in through the state outside of the property taxes. 1920 SB 117 was the governor's response to COVID expenses, and so there was one-time funding of $36,000 from the SB 117 funds that we don't have coming in next year. We did reduce our lottery estimates by 15%, which was an industry recommendation due to lower sales. So the stores that sell lottery tickets, many were closed for the number of months that the economy was shut down. So they anticipate that our lottery revenue will go down. We have reduced our Baylord lease income, knowing that the Baylord property has sold, and we will probably be vacating those properties at some point in the year. Lower interest, our cash balances are down. Miscellaneous local revenue, we have different things that flow through that pot. We have workers' comp, we have stale dated checks. Those are one-time issues. We don't incur those over year until they happen. And then we had the benefit of not only having COVID-19 this year, but we also had in January a ransomware attack that took our whole network down. So we did receive a insurance payment of $13,700. It did cost over almost $200 to restore our servers. That was not covered by insurance. We received our final Thomas Fire payment, $115,000. And again, a site, which is our workers' comp JPA, offered a second-year rebate. We had one in the prior year, a second-year rebate of their fund balance. So what they per actuary had to pay back to their members part of the fund balance because it exceeded the actuary limit. There's revenue for Measure U classroom moves. You'll also see the reduction of expense for the same exact amount. And then we adjust our special ed and restricted maintenance account contributions from the general fund every year based on costs. So special ed costs the general fund another $41,000 in contribution to the special ed fund. And then restricted maintenance, we were able to reduce that. We were making an assumption to reduce it back to the 2014 levels, and that brought money back into the revenue pot of $33,578. So ultimately, our revenues for the unrestricted general fund are going down $477,015. We are looking to end 1920 with 21.5 million, and we're looking to have 2021 revenue just barely over 21 million. On the expenditure side, the budget drivers have not changed. We increase the budget for step and column and range increases for classified and certificated employees based on contractual levels. We had a health and well increase. We did have a fairly low, a very low rate increase of 0.5% overall, just about 15,000. Pension increases in the governor's budget, and this did hold with both the legislature and the governor. They both agreed to this. A decrease of our STRS rate of 0.6 and an increase of a PERS rate of 0.98. Now, prior to the governor's budget proposal and the legislature, both of these were almost 3% increases. So this was a bit of a relief for us. Estimated utility increase, 35,000. Property and liability, that's our insurance, 15,000. Other assignment adjustments, those mean we had a vacancy mid-year. You had a couple of months of savings, but now the position's been filled, it's fully restored. And then we had reduction to the cafeteria fund of 34,000. So we're reducing how much the cafeteria fund is costing us. We are in the budget proposed on June 9th in the hearing. This was an additional DLI teacher. We are proposing this as none. With the TK enrollment coming in lower, we were able to not fill that position and utilize the staffing elsewhere. So we are not adding a DLI teacher at this time. And that is enabling us to restore, and I'm going to go to this page, the 0.6 social studies teacher at the high school. So there is only a 0.4 reduction, and I apologize, the description does not say it's reduced. It still says one social studies teacher. It should only say 0.4. That's my mistake. I apologize. But it is only a 1.4 reduction, one science teacher at the middle school and a 0.4 at the high school. We have 2 long-term contracts that we are not anticipating for next year. That is a reduction of $135,000. We are reducing site budgets by 20%. And what's not on here are any reductions to the athletic program. We are going to minimize or reduce our use of legal fees by 10% for $28,926. We have the costs of our ransomware attack in January. Those are one-time purchases we had to make out of the unrestricted budget of $94,400. We have one-time purchase of bus and van cameras of $26,169 that we're taking out of the budget. One-time Measure U moves. This again was in the revenue piece. It's also in the expense side. And then we are estimating about a 25% reduction in substitute costs. Understanding that we'll be at some level of hybrid learning in the fall. We are reducing our home to school transportation costs of $23,125. We are not going to be able to provide transportation for our home to school program due to the fact that we are not able in our buses with the population that we transport to social distance on the bus. We're proposing to reduce nurse corps. We had a medically fragile student that required this service that is not returning next year of $60,000. We had some professional development at the high school for we are not going to renew the contract for Illuminate EduClimber. That's a reduction of $32,500. Crisis Go is an emergency response app that is going to be grant funded next year. We are not eliminating it. We're eliminating CADA, the parent component only of $31,500. Our Girls Inc. Early Bird Literacy Program by $27,000. Explore Ecology is our outdoor education K-5 of $3,200. Edmentum is another contract, a 3-year contract we are not renewing for $68,057. Our charter bus transportation, this is where you don't see it in the athletics budget. That's for both athletic trips and field trips of $81,000. And then actual field trip costs, that's the fees that we pay to for CME, the actual registration fees of $21,128, and that's half of the cost. So we're reducing our budget by $972,364. When you put all of that together with our estimated 1920 expenditures of $21,900, we add our drivers, we have no program improvements, we reduce our budgets by $972,000. We're changing our expenditures by $754,000. And so when you look at the total impact of the budget, with the beginning fund balance, or I should say the ending fund balance of 1920 estimated at $1.1 million, $21 million in revenue, $21.2 in expense. We're deficit spending $180,233 with an unrestricted ending fund balance of $946,690, which is a 3.26%. For those of you who haven't seen this before or are not familiar, we are required by the state of California to have no less than a 3% reserve in the current and 2 subsequent years. So this is a side-by-side of our 1920 estimated actuals next to the 2021 budget. You see they're both under 4%, 3.6%, 3.2%. That's about as low as we can go. This is our 2021, where you see restricted, unrestricted side by side and how it relates to the full general fund. And then the multi-year projection. So this is where you see with the current proposed 2021 budget, with the assumptions for 21, 22, and 22, 23 only statutory increases, no program changes at all. We are at 3.26 this year, just at 3% next year, and 4.48 the following year. This will change. This is where we are today. So I want to talk about what we do know. And it's changed again since then. It changed yesterday. The legislature and the governor did agree on the budget. The governor has yet to sign it, and we have yet to see all of the trailer bills. That will take place in the next week. We do know state revenues will not be known until early fall. We know that personal income tax was extended to be paid through July. So the state won't know their revenues for 1920 until summer. And so by the time they do everything they need to know, state revenues are not going to be known to the school districts until late August, probably at best. We do know that additional state cuts can occur in August and September and as late as October. We do know we need to be flexible, nimble, and responsive to updated information, which I will be bringing to the board as we know it. And it does change almost every day, including the interpretation of what the governor and legislature agreed on yesterday. It's a very large document. What we don't know is if the basic aid cut of 10% to us is going to be restored or affected. The governor can reject the legislature budget. We know he didn't do that. We know he didn't reject the budget in total, and we know he accepted all or some of the changes. We also know the trailer bills haven't all been written yet. And so the governor has until June 30th to actually sign the document. The good news is we know he didn't reject it. It didn't go back to the drawing board. They did come to agreement. We also know that property tax collection, so there's no penalty if you pay your property taxes late all the way through May of 2021. We're funded by property taxes. We're not funded by the local control funding formula. We will not know, because we are a teeter district, if property taxes are going to affect us and how they're going to affect us probably until October. We may have some idea in July, but probably not until October. We also know that the governor has apportioned his CARES money. So there's the money that went from the CARES, the federal relief, to districts directly, and there's money that went to the governor. He's giving some of his money back to the districts for COVID relief. There is a lot of language and a lot of formulas that Diana talked about in that, and that has not been identified in its full entirety. What we do know, is that some of those formulas are contingent on the federal government providing additional relief to the states, not the CARES money that's already in place. So there's a lot of unknowns. How fast will the economy recover? Will we have a potential second wave in the fall? We're not even done with our first wave, and we see a lot of spiking. What will the fall look like? We don't know, but we are watching it every day, and we are making sure that we are getting the best information we have available to the board. So that is the budget.
Thank you very much, Michelle. There's a lot, Maureen, there's a lot of information here, and we appreciate that very much. Now I would like to have a motion on the floor, and then we could have a discussion if need be.
I think we
have a motion.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Maureen at this time?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. And I said this at our last one, of course, that seeing the reserve balance is very troubling to me, but I really do appreciate that you were able to listen to the public comment from last time, and then board suggestions and reinstating the high school positions that I know was also part of the student leader group's suggestions. And so I was happy to see that. So I do appreciate that staff worked really hard to move things around and did the best they could. So thank you for that.
Michelle, anybody else have a comment? Monica, I think we have a speaker.
Correct. We have Christy Cooney.
Hi, I just wanted to echo what Michelle said and thank the board and district staff for listening to public comment and making changes. And very glad to see that that history position or social science position has been added back to the high school, and the reduction to the cuts in athletics taken out of the proposal. And again, just thank you for listening and taking a second look. I think you all take a lot of criticism and a lot of heat, and you don't always get the positive reinforcement and the thank you for when you do listen and make positive changes. So I wanted to express that here tonight. And I would just like to encourage too, that perhaps in the future, I know budgets are always challenging. School budgets are very complex, and I appreciate you looking into some of the things I suggested and coming back with reasons why you could or could not make adjustments there because of unrestricted and restricted budgets. And I think if we could just do more to educate and look at things differently and maybe make it a more collaborative learning experience. I know I, for one, would love to take a role in that, and maybe that's something we can work towards in the future. But again, thank you all for your time and consideration and for making some positive changes to the budget.
Thank you very much, Christy. Okay, I'm calling for the vote. The board is asked to approve the proposed 2020-2021 adopted budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to E5, public comment.
I didn't vote.
Pardon?
I didn't vote. I didn't get to vote.
Okay, what is your vote, Rogelio?
Nay.
Thank you. E5, public comment. Monica, I believe we have a from Sarah.
Correct. We have Sarah Roglister and Felicity Moore and Jay Hochner have ceded their minutes to her.
I would like to say that if I have any extra minutes, I would like to cede them to the speakers from earlier. So I'm not sure how long this will go. I also want to say that I am in complete solidarity with all of the students and community members that spoke today about implementing ethnic studies in our schools. But I'm here to talk about something different, actually. It looks like you are going to have 2 task forces to create. I'm coming to you today as an extremely concerned parent, teacher, union site rep for CHS, executive board member of CAUSE. I bring the concerns of other parents, the teachers at my school site, and the union leadership team that represents the interests of all our members, certificated and classified. My essential question to you is, where is the CUSD School Reopening Committee of stakeholders? I am baffled by why I am not seeing the creation of a robust school reopening task force that includes all stakeholders. This disturbs me greatly. All the literature I read about other school districts make reference to a committee of stakeholders. Where is ours? The suggestion that the union will be included in decision-making for this process has been alluded to on a few different occasions, and 2 hours before this meeting, we finally received what appeared to be an invitation to bargain school reopening decisions, but I have yet to see any indication that the district plans to create a reopening task force of stakeholders. We need a diverse group that will help to inform decisions and not just respond to decisions that have already been made. So far, the only fact-finding, research, and decision-making that I'm aware of has been done by the district leadership team, which is comprised of only district administrators and does not include parents, teachers, students, for that matter, or union leadership. Parents have been surveyed, and that is important data to collect and analyze, but does not replace active participation on a committee. I would like to also point out that sending a digital Google Forms survey to parents is going to solicit only responses from a narrow demographic. I would be interested to see a breakdown of how many responses you received and how they fell into groups like socioeconomically disadvantaged, English as a second language. I can almost guarantee you that parents with language barriers who are working full-time or multiple jobs are less likely to respond to a digital survey. And these are the families that will have the most challenges with a hybrid model where their kids are in school 3 days out of the week. We need to hear from these people. You are going to have to do better than a Google survey. One of the huge points that Laura Flores made in her letter to you was, were my parents asked their opinion? No, they were not. Let's not continue to make that mistake. How do we facilitate more broad parent outreach? That would be a great first question for a task force of stakeholders. How do we create a committee with diversity that reflects our student population? Teachers may have had a better return rate on the initial survey we were given a month ago, but the questions we were asked were on such a superficial level that I can't imagine how anything substantial could have been determined based on those responses. The survey just sent to elementary teachers today allowed for only 2 options of hybrid models with no supporting information about sanitation, PPEs, outdoor versus indoor. How are teachers supposed to make an informed decision based on that? These questions and options are just barely scratching the surface of what needs to be solicited from teachers. We are uniquely positioned to know what is going to work best for teaching and learning in our classrooms. We are the experts. How can you have a leadership team making decisions about school reopenings without any teachers on that team? At a minimum, there should be a teacher representative from each school site. Mandy DeWitt and Julie Rubio-Shamlin have created a 5-pronged criteria that all possible reopening schedules should be judged against. 1, safety. How safe is the schedule compared to other options? 2, accountability. How does the schedule support keeping students accountable and engaged? 3, accessibility. How easy is it for families to actively participate in their students' learning? How easy is it for students to be engaged? 4, effective instruction. How well does this schedule promote learning? 5, building student-teacher relationships. How well does this schedule foster positive and meaningful relationships? This process of planning to reopening schools should be a methodical, data-driven, and deeply vetted process with input from all stakeholders. I now want to circle back to the elephant in the room, which is integral to the hybrid reopening model. The essential question here is, what do we do with young students when they are not in school? This is going to be a huge issue for working parents. Here I wear my teacher hat and my parent hat. How can I go back to work teaching full-time if my kids are not in school full-time? How does that work? Your report cites Girls Inc. as your solution for this, and they're a great institution. But what about boys? What about the costs? Have you been in conversation with the Boys and Girls Club? Have you thought about utilizing the after-school program instead of cutting it? What happens when high schoolers can't go back to school or really focus on their own learning because they are caring for young siblings at home? We can't really begin to talk about the particulars of reopening if we don't even know how we will care for students when they aren't in school. I'm not sure why there seems to be a lack of bold, transparent action here, but from looking at other districts and the information they are sharing, we are severely behind the curve. I'm asking the school board as a parent, a teacher, and a union representative to please push this process beyond the district leadership team. We desperately need a school reopening committee that has diverse representation of all stakeholders. We have parents, teachers, and union representatives with great ideas, insight, and a wealth of experience and knowledge. Let's start using them. So it looks to me like you have 2 major task forces that need to get created. 1 to implement ethnic studies in our schools, and 1 to figure out how we can reopen our schools safely for everyone. Any extra time I have, I'd like to cede to the speakers from before who did not get to finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate your comments. And as I move on with the agenda, there are no new board policies and nothing related to educational services. So we move to business and operations and warrants. May I have a motion to approve the warrants?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the warrants? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, moving on to H2. We have a donation from the Alice Tweed Tui Foundation to the 2020 CHS valedictorian. May I have a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
I'll second with gratitude.
Any questions? Yes, with gratitude to the Alice Tweed Tui Foundation. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rohili, did you say no?
No, I said, yeah, aye.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Moving on to Measure U. We have a contract with Bertos and Company for consulting services, Measure U Communications. May I have a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions regarding this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Yep. Moving on to I2, the approval of the contract with Move Green for moving services at Catalino. The board is asked to approve the contract with Move Green for moving services associated with the Catalino campus modernization. The cost for the service is not to exceed $7,740. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to I3. The board is asked to approve the contract with Pacific Materials Laboratory to perform inspection services for the Aliso Elementary School Campus Modernization Project, phases 2 and 3. The service fee in the amount of $22,540 will be paid with Major U bonds. May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The board is asked to approve the contract with Pacific Materials Laboratory to perform inspection services for the Carpinteria High School Campus Modernization Project. The service fee in the amount of $30,045 will be paid with Major U funds. May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? I5, the contract with Ernie Keys for professional services for 2020-2021. The agreement describing services to be provided by Ernest Keys as an essential member of the Measure U management team. His hourly rate of $95 is along the same range as most other rates charged by these professionals. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I6, the rejection of all bids for the removal of the portable classrooms in Catalino. The board is asked to reject all bids for the removal of portable classroom buildings at Catalino Elementary School. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
Yeah, I just did a little bit of background on that one.
Yes, when they received the bids, the bidders did not have all the requirements in place, so they were failed bids.
Okay, thank you.
So is it going back out to bid now?
Yes, it will go back out to bid.
All those in favor of the rejection?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Moving on to personnel J1. I would like to open.
There seems to be a question. Does Sarah Rocklitzer have any more time? We just weren't made aware if she had extra time or not.
She was given a time allocation and people ceded to it, and unfortunately, we have to move on.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to open a public hearing to receive input on the certificated openers 2020 to 2021 submitted by the Carpinteria Unified School District to the Carpinteria Association of United School Employees, CAUSE, Local 2216, on the June 9th, 2020 board meeting. The board will receive input and the president, I would like to read Article 6, compensation and benefits. The district goal is to collaboratively create a total compensation package that fully supports employees while meeting the operational needs of the district. Article 7, professional day and responsibility. The district goal is to collaboratively create contract language to ensure student educational equity and support for teachers across all grade levels. Are there any comments? Okay, I would like to close the meeting. And I'll move on to J2. The board is asked to adopt the Carpinteria Unified School District initial proposal for negotiations to the Carpinteria Association of United School Employees, CAUSE, Certificated Unit Local 2216, 2021. And I will again read Article 6, Compensation and Benefits. The district goal is to collaboratively create a total compensation package that fully supports employees while meeting the operational needs of the district. Are there any comments? I will close that meeting. Moving on to J4. J5.
Excuse me, Sally.
Yes.
You need to vote on J3. They need to vote for it.
Oh, okay.
Proposal.
All right. So J3.
I'm sorry,
J2.
J2.
J2. May I have a motion to approve J2?
Move to approve.
Second.
Are there any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And to approve J3, may I have a motion?
No, J4.
Oh, sorry. J4?
Move to approve J4.
Second?
Second. Second, did you get that? I think
Is it
Sally's
Sally?
frozen, yeah.
There, my video's back.
Sorry about that.
You're on mute, Sally.
Okay, we'll move on to the personnel summary, J5. May I have a motion to approve J5?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions about J5? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any board announcements about things that may involve activities at the school or students? Rogelio?
Yes, I just would like to thank our community, our teachers, and students and former students for their comments, because actually they're going to be making a change. Without them, probably it would have taken us a long time to accomplish, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogelio. I think we'd all agree with that. Any other comments or announcements? And future agenda items is the school reopening plan for 2020-2021 school year. We will continue that discussion, obviously. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Sally, I know this isn't the norm, but I'm not sure if you're seeing the chats, but there are minutes, 6 additional minutes that the students would like to use that they haven't been given the opportunity to use. So Sarah should have 3 minutes and Eric's 3 minutes.
Krista, you spoke on D2 and you can't cede minutes to another item. Okay.
Look, the sun's still up and there's a lot of time. This was a pretty short board meeting. The reason you gave us before was that we had so much work to do, but it looks like there's a little time. So maybe you can give these students the opportunity to communicate.
Okay, I'm going to.
Or you're not really listening.
I'm going to call on you, Laura. Was it you, Laura, that had not finished? No, it was not you. It was,
I believe Becky.
it was Becky. I'm sorry.
There were several people.
Becky, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to finish your comments.
Okay, thank you, Sally, very much. So as I was saying, I was talking about the harm and injustices that were endured the last time the social justice issue was raised here in CUSD. A Native American woman was actually spit on and yelled at and told, "Your people will always be our mascots." My own children were verbally harassed, and I was shunned by former friends. As you can imagine, this was deeply hurtful and traumatizing to all concerned. What hurts one of us hurts us all. We cannot afford to repeat this history. A Native American Studies course was promised by administration 11 years ago as part of this whole thing, and it never came to fruition. The Ethnic Studies course that's being proposed would correct this and naturally contain a strand related to Native American history and contemporary issues. Perhaps if an Ethnic Studies course and graduation requirement had been in place back then, there would have been more community understanding and sensitivity to these issues. The proper action would not have been undone and psychological harm could have been avoided. Our sincerest desire is to protect these students from the types of harm that the former student and his allies endured. The Ethnic Studies course and graduation requirement can only make our community stronger, healthier, and safer. We anxiously await your actions to make positive change and correct the injustices. Members of our group, Diversify Our Narrative Carpinteria, are standing by, ready and willing to be called on to carry out tasks and overcome any potential obstacles you may encounter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky.
Is there any way that I can be granted 3 minutes?
All right, Vanessa, go ahead, 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Vega, and I'm a CHS alumni from 2013. And I think we kind of need to address the elephant in the room that there is a lack of intersectionality in every base when it comes to like anything that we've been talking about today. And it's the fact that it's like, even Miss Rock pointed out that teachers were not being talked to and called upon when it came to the board to be able to talk about reopening. And that's intersectionality in itself on a small level. Like, if we want to start implementing an ethnic studies course in our institutions and like in our education curriculum, well, then we need to start and actually like get rid of the big curtain that like is the racist mascot. And there's no way that we can advocate for racial justice and ethnic studies when our school is a poster child for the antithesis of that. So I think it's really important that we, as not a very largely diverse community, mainly white and Latinx people reside in Carpinteria. I myself only had about 4 people that I knew that were Black when I was a freshman, and it grew to 12 by the time I was a senior. So how can we amplify those voices when those voices don't exist? So it's important that we as a community go out of our way and become uncomfortable and do something about the fact that there's no intersectionality. And women's studies. Where's the women's studies? Women, Black transgender women are the reason that we have any single reform in America today, any single social justice revolution. So that's a huge, huge thing that needs to be touched upon. As a bisexual person at CHS, I did not feel safe coming out as a gay person in that school, and I knew very many people who did not feel safe as a gay, bisexual, trans, anything that was in a straight, white, heterosexual, Eurocentric person. So I think we need to actually acknowledge that there is a huge lack of intersectionality and an outreach to go towards communities that do not exist around us. So that is to see the rest of my time, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. And I do believe the conversation will be continuing and things are in place to make many changes. So thank you. Anyone else? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to approve. Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for